The new balance changes in Clash of Clans rolled out a few days ago. And in this video we're going to take a look at how much of an effect they had on the meta and how you can still make Meteor Golems work even after the nerf. With that, hello and welcome to yet another video. My name is Gum and this is the army we're going to dive into today with the Meteor Golems. Not much has changed since the last time we covered this attack strategy. However, we just put in an extra healer, as well as we changed back to the spear. So like the spear, the rocket spear on top of the world champion instead of the frost flake. And how that can work out even after the balance changes, let's take a look at that right now. And let's take a look at this first replay here from Vibes on this box base. And as many of you have probably already heard, the Meteor Golem is one of the troops that got nerfed in the recent balance changes. However, the nerf which it got is basically just a 50% damage reduction when it comes to walls. However, if you take a look at the current base meta, where you have so many of those bases where you have an invisibility tower in the core of the base with like basically a lot of walls around that, is that basically the current base meta doesn't use too many walls and too many compartments. So this is basically one of the base types that has gotten significantly harder with Meteor Golems, or well, where the nerf actually has an effect. And the other bases we're going to take a look at after this basically have zero to no effect when it comes to the Meteor Golems, the Meteor Golem nerf, because the damage didn't get reduced, the health didn't get reduced. So therefore, basically any of the walls, any of the bases that is currently in, in the base meta, the balance changes on the Meteor Golems just don't really matter, and it's still going through each base as simple as before. So let's take a look at how Vibes managed to do it in this case, and that is of course because, well, you don't have the damage anymore on walls, or well, reduced damage on walls. So what you're going to see way more often than before is using the log launcher. So beforehand, before the balance changes, most people just always use the troop launcher, and in this time, most of the times you're not going to see the troop launcher, only if you're like going directly into the town hall, but most of the times you're going to see the log launcher just to help opening up the walls, because the Meteor Golems just have some struggles doing it themselves. And once you open up every single wall in the core of the base, or well, open up the core of the base with your log launcher, and then the Meteor Golems just have so much fun and so much ease just crushing through the base, which you're able to see here. So like, basically he's already taken out most of the base, or basically everything in the base. And did he even lose a Meteor Golem? Maybe one, maybe two, but it doesn't really matter. Still has the Barbarian King alive, still has the Archer Queen alive in combination with the Grand Warden, who is still, well, with the Rage Aura, boosting their damage, and so on, together with these two healers. The healing is still also there, and the healing, to be honest, doesn't really matter at this point, because there are just so many troops left. And with that, this base, even though the Meteor Golem got slightly nerfed, it doesn't really matter. And this base now perfectly shows what I mean by that the balance changes have zero to no effect, because this is one base type, or well, this is a base that is very similar to a lot of bases that is currently, very well spread in High Legacy League, or just in Legacy League in general, or on Town Hall 18. And on this base, of course, like, Meteor Golems got nerfed slightly when it comes to the damage on walls, but on a base like this, it doesn't really matter. It would have been way better if they just got a damage reduction or a health reduction, which isn't the case right here. So therefore, those Meteor Golems just go through this base as if it's nothing, just like before. And for example, there are some troops that got buffed. For example, Electro Dragons. Electro Dragons are very viable. They are just basically now something you can use parallel to, for example, the Hydra strategy, the Totem Hydra strategy. You can now use Totem Electro Dragons instead. But for example, on a base like this, something like Super Witches is never going to work, because most of the times you're just going to get a time fill. Of course, you will still have the, you'll still have enough damage to make your way through the base, but just in general, they are just not quick enough. Even if you have the Rage Aura on there, Super Witches just tend to struggle, even though they got boosted significantly. but once we will maybe see some other bases or some other base types in maybe an upcoming season or so, then it could be a difference and we could actually see super witches working. But now on this base, it is just the same as before. So if you were having a lot of success with Meteor Golems before the balance changes, you don't need to worry, because you will still have a lot of success after the balance changes. Because just take a look, even though of course this hit is now a little bit closer, the Archer Queen is still left standing with, like, for example, the Giant. And on the top side we have like 2 Meteor Golems still left, 1 Meteor Golem. It's 1 Meteor Golem, I believe, and 1 mini Meteor Golem. But it is just significant. It's more than enough to get rid of this base and therefore get the 3 stars. And we do have to take into account, we're talking about Legends League here. So we have this very, very high we have these very, very high modifiers, which just make it so much harder for people to get 3 stars. So if you're in any lower league, like for example League 33 or anything below that, or for example you're playing Clan War Leagues or Clan Wars, if you copy this attack strategy or just copy this attack in general on this specific base, because well it's a popular base, you're going to see it more often, then you will for sure be able to get those 3 stars. And here's another very popular base in this meta, or well in this base meta. And once again, you basically just have like 1, 2, 3 compartments on there. So the reduction when it comes to damage on walls, it really does not matter. It does not matter a single bit. However, what you do see people doing, like for example Vibes in this hit and the 2 hits before, or well in the first hit and especially in this hit, is he is now always trying to go for a lot of fireball value. Before the update, people were just going for, okay, funneling is more important than value, and this has shifted a little bit and people are actually going after value when it comes to the fireball. So he actually invested every single one of his invisibility spells to land that fireball on top of that rage tower and then take out basically every single bit of the space. And with that, after this fireball, it is really hard to just really fail. And even though we're going into the town hall once again, we're going to see the log launcher being used. So because you're taking 5 Meteor Golems in this attack strategy together with 5 healers, you don't really have too much space left for any support troops. You have, like for example 6 archers, you have the mini warden which you basically need, you have 1 headhunter, a few coconut loons, and you don't really have too much space for wall breakers anymore. So that's the main issue you're basically having. You can't bring too many wall breakers to open up walls. Meteor Golems deal less damage, so that's why on most bases you're actually going to see the log launcher being used, just to open up those few walls the Meteor Golems need to go through. And then he opened up 2 compartments with this log launcher, and then the last single compartment with like the monolith in there. It doesn't really matter, the world champion is going to take care sooner or later. Because the world champion, or well basically if you don't have the world champion but the world champion is now hopping in there, you still have the Archer Queen who is now boxing her way through the wall. So if the world champion wasn't there, the Archer Queen would have taken care of it. Even with the ability, with of course the magic mirror as well as the giant, she would have had no problems taking that out. And now you can see the Meteor Golems still basically have the same power as before. And if you of course want to copy this army, the army link is of course in the description. But it is just insane that even though we had some balance changes, it has basically made 0 difference when it comes to the meta. And also like something as totem spells together with Hydra, it is still something you can really just use, but you just now have an extra alternative you can use with the Electro Dragons. So I just really hope we will maybe see a shift when it comes to the base meta, so we can actually see some other strategies that have, well, had some buffs. Like for example, maybe you can see some Electro Titans there with like the new Heroic Torch level, I mean with the Heroic Torch buff. Or maybe something like Super Witches, but that just isn't the case right now, because in this base type that is still very well spread within Legends League or within the Town Hall 18 meta, it is just still the best to stick to the old strategies we already used before the update. Now let's take a look at a base that is also very popular in the current meta, but actually has a few compartments compared to like the other bases where you just have a few single compartments with like a lot of walls around that. And in this base, we're just going to do the crack. Maybe you've already seen if you watch some of our other videos. It is just basically you land a fireball on top of that air defense in front of the monolith, take that out, and then you send in every single bit of your army from the 12 o'clock side. And of course, Barbarian King as well as the World Champion from the right hand side to counter funnel, and then the Log Launcher from the 12 o'clock side to open up the core of the base, as well as trigger that Invisibility Tower. And once that Invisibility Tower has been triggered and all of those Meteor Golems walk into the core of the base, you basically already have those 3 stars. What you really need to watch out for though is you need to use that RC ability rather sooner than later. So if you don't use that RC ability early on, most of the time she's just going to walk into damage, and then when you use the ability, she is just still taking damage whilst in her ability, and then basically most of the times it doesn't really get any value. So you really have to use that ability early on, so the Meteor Golems tank for your, so the World Champion that stays behind, and the Meteor Golems as well as the Barbarian King actually have a chance of tanking her, because the RC just likes running in front of any, in front of any troops that's tanking for her and just run into any damage. And once that's the case, like for example in this hit, you can see that within the blink of an eye, you have been able to crush this base completely. And once again, even though this is Legends League, it is Legends League with the Legends League modifiers, it is still a complete overkill. You have 3 of those healers still left, you have so many Meteor Golems still left, and it is just still, even though the troop got nerfed, Meteor Golems is one of the best strategies you can use. So if you had success with it before, you are still going to have success with it after the balance changes. I hope you liked this video. I will say see you guys soon. Until the next one, take care, see ya, and bye bye.